Hi, I don't know about you guys, but for me, Christmas came early. Ta-da! So I was able to find a mega deal on Craigslist. I was actually looking for a dado blade, which I have back on the workbench there as well, but a table saw and several other tools were included in the deal that I found. So I got the dado blade I was looking for that I was going to use on my old table saw, but I also got a new table saw, so can't beat that. You'll see a lot of these tools in upcoming videos as I need to refurbish a couple and work on a few. So stick around and you'll see those. But today I'm going to show you my steps for tuning this table saw to be quite accurate. So let's get started. Got started by taking the table off the box so that I had better access to the underside of the table, just to make things a little bit easier. Just 4 bolts, so it came off pretty easy. Because I didn't have enough horizontal movement in the back trunnion of the table saw, I had to take the trunnion off and actually drill the holes bigger. But if you don't have to take the trunnion off and you have enough movement, I would definitely recommend not taking it off. So like I said, I had to drill the holes for the trunnion a little bit bigger so that I had enough movement, in this case for the back trunnion, to go to the right. And I just cleaned things up with some mineral spirits so that it slid a little bit better in the trunnion. And after I put the trunnion on, I tightened down to a little over finger tight and tapped all the way over, which in this case is to the right. And then I flipped the table over so that I can get some measurements with the dial indicator using the miter slots. So I'm using a dial indicator just to get very accurate measurements, and I'm clamping this to a miter gauge, which you need to make sure is pushed all the way to one side or the other of the miter slot to accommodate for any slop, which in my saw was about 1/8 thou. You also need to make sure that the dial indicator is touching the same spot on the blade so that you can accommodate for any blade wobble. I had to take the front trunnion off my saw as well to get even more horizontal movement. And make sure you hold on to the table saw assembly just so it doesn't tip over on you like that. And now I'm drilling out the front trunnion just to give myself a little more horizontal movement to get the blade perfectly parallel to the miter slots. And a little bit of cleanup with some mineral spirits and a wire brush just to get everything rolling nice and smoothly. And putting the front trunnion back in just was a little complicated to get the bevel angle lined up correctly again, but just a little finagling and we got it back in. So just to go through the process a little bit, the miter slots are the constant in this accuracy, so you need to align the blade to your miter slots and the fence to the miter slots as well. So here I am measuring one more time, and everything's looking pretty good. I was down to about 0.03 of an inch after final adjustments. I'm now adjusting the stops for the 45-degree cuts, and you might ask why I'm using a molded square if I'm doing everything else with a dial indicator, but this is what I had and it seemed to work out pretty well. So I just moved the blade over to 45 degrees and adjusted the stops accordingly to have a nice hard stop. And now that 45 degrees is in the right spot, I'm measuring the 45 alignment with the dial indicator, and from my look of despair you can see there I was about 50 thousandths off, which means that I need to put a washer under both sides of the back trunnion. In my case I had to lower it, so I used a washer and a piece of plastic that I cut out as a washer, and I was able to get in this case it's actually a vertical alignment for the 45 to about 2 thousandths. After moving the blade back to 90 degrees and checking that I'm in the right spot, I did one more check with the dial indicator and was pleased to find that I'm still within about 3.5 thou, which is less than a piece of paper thick. And now putting the table back on the stand, and this is a saw built in 1999, and let's just say it was very well cast, so it's a very heavy table and wings, which is good. I'm glad it's a solid saw. So it took a little finagling to get this into place, but in the end I got it in really well, and it was just the 4 bolts to bolt it down to the stand again. And to put the assembly back together, I'm putting the angle, or I guess bevel indicator back in, and then putting the wheels on to raise and lower the blades. And putting the angle adjustment wheel on, and again these are nice heavy cast wheels, so I'm very excited to have a well-built table saw finally. And I thought this would be a cool shot just to see the angle being adjusted. And putting the nice heavy-duty left wing on the table, it's just held underneath with 3 bolts. And then I'm making sure that it's perfectly plain across the top with a level. And hooking the power switch back up, the saw is wired for 230 volts, which is great because that gives me a little more power for startup and for running thick stock through the saw. And now on to putting the bar for the fence on, and you need to make sure this is perfectly perpendicular to the miter slots. In my case it wasn't, so I had to put a washer in between the right bolt and the table to move the bar away from the table on the right hand side to make it perpendicular. And some adjustments on the back of the fence to make it parallel to the miter slots. Just these 2 screws on the back to move it either left or right when compared to the miter slots. When I checked if I was parallel, I found that I was about 2 thou from front to back of the fence, and that's exceptional. And making sure the cut indicator on the fence was lined up properly, I used a caliper, making sure I measured from the correct side of the blade so that I incorporated the width of the kerf into it. I had to make a minor adjustment of about a 1/16 of an inch to get my fence properly aligned, and I measured at 1, 2, and about 15 inches, and I was dead nuts accurate. To polish up the top of the table, I used a scouring pad and random orbit sander. I then applied a generous coat of Johnson's paste wax and wiped it off with a paper towel. I do want to make a note that it would be a good idea to put a square against the table and the fence to make sure that is perfectly 90 degrees as well. And making one of my first cuts with the saw. And I probably will be getting a new belt for this, as it does vibrate a little bit. You can tell it's been sitting and conformed to the pulleys a little bit. But that'll be the only real expense that needs to be put into this saw. So I am totally blown away with how accurately this cuts and how easily the board slid through compared to my old table saw. And you guys probably can't see this on the camera I have, but this is just amazingly smooth. I mean, a quick sand would make that just beautiful. So much better than what my old table saw used to be. The tuning for this actually took me probably a solid day and a half to do, and it was very frustrating at times when I would get it accurate and turn around and come back and it was 10 thou out of accuracy again. So anyway, it's not the newest table saw, it's not a saw stop by any means, but and the fence actually is probably going to get upgraded at some point, and it will be worth that investment for how little I got this saw for. But it's got a 2 horsepower motor. It needs some dust collection work on it, which will probably be another video someday. I'll put some dust collection on this. But really, I'm pleased. Merry Christmas. It's wonderful. So now I hope you guys found that useful. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. I'd also like to hear just what you think about it. I'm Tyler. I like to do it myself, and we will see you next time.